What is good people? You are now listening to another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. I am your humble narrator, Danny Foxworth, and once again, we're graced with an extremely special guest. This man, he's basically Twitter royalty out here, man. From Connecticut, Hartford, Connecticut to be exact.
Sir.
Currently residing in North Carolina. Shout out to the 919.
Yep.
You know him, you love him. I call him Jiff Master Flex. Ladies and gentlemen, diehard Tar Heel fan, Giants, all the good stuff, man. Leonard Brothers, we got LB in the building, man. What's good, bro?
What's going on, man?
Man, I cannot complain, bro. So, first off, I want to start with the podcast. So you got two podcasts. You got Look and Listen, and you have South End Cinema. Yeah. What made you get started with those podcasts?
All right, so the original idea for the podcast was for the Look and Listen podcast to be an extension of a book club that I was trying to do called the Look and Listen Book Club.
LLBC.
Right. And that was the yeah. And that was the reason why I called it that is because I wanted people to be able to either read the books, look, or listen to them like on Audible or whatever.
Okay.
I figured it would be a way to kind of like have different, use the technology and social media and all that kind of stuff that we have available to us. And I wanted the podcast to be like where we had our discussions.
Gotcha.
That really didn't take off like I wanted it to. I think maybe I don't even know if it's still online or not, but like the very first episode of the show was like that. And I think there was another one. I tried it again at some other point, but that really didn't take off like I wanted it to. So once that kind of failed, I was like, well, what can I do with this? Because I have, this RSS feed and, I have this space kind of like online or whatever. So I started to think about like what else I could do with like, I could keep the name, or I could change the name, but I decided to keep the name. And I was like, well, what else can I do? So I started doing what I call 101 episodes, which is kind of like a deep dive into a topic. For example, I've got like a hip hop one about Black people in the military, natural hair, parenting, different things like that. And then some of the conversations, with stuff that I know about and have experience with, like hip hop or whatever. So I could, in that episode, I could talk about, some of my own opinions and all that kind of stuff, as well as with the guests, and each of those I had some, at least one other person on there with me, usually like 2, sometimes 3. And that was just like what we did. We would just chop it up about whatever the topic is. One of my best ones that I think was the Morning Jones 101.
Yes.
Where I had Bomani Jones, Ryan from the Black Guy Who Tips, and Stacey from Brooklyn, rest in peace. I had those 3 guys on to talk about the Morning Jones, which was a radio show that Bo used to do back in the day. And I really only caught it for like the last few months, what ended up being the last few months of the show. And you mentioned my Carolina fandom. That's what brought me over there to it, because I used to be on the Inside Carolina message boards.
Okay.
I remember I saw a post one time. It was going into the playoffs. This was when I believe when Tyler Hansborough was playing for the Pacers, and there was some comments that Bo made about Hansborough, and they made it to IC message boards or whatever. So somebody was like, "Yo, you got to check out what Bomani Jones said about Hansborough on this show." So I checked it out. They had the clip to the time code on those specific comments, but I was like, I ain't really got nothing else to do right now. I might as well just listen to the whole thing. So I listened to the whole show, fell in love with it instantly. It was like the sports show that I didn't know that I needed. I didn't even know shit like that existed. And that was like the first step in me getting into this whole world of podcasting. Because one of the people that was on the show that I heard from that point on was a guy called Rob from Charlotte, who eventually I came to know as Rob from the Black Guy Who Tips. And, that kind of just opened up the door for me to find all these different Black podcasts and then eventually start my own. And like I said, originally I had a book club idea But really the inspiration to even start my own shit came from Rod and came from Bomani's show or whatever.
Okay.
And South End Cinema, I decided to like, cause along the way, the look and listen has like evolved a lot. Like I do the one-on-ones. Eventually I started doing like some TV stuff where like, you know, I may do a little bit of a review on things. I've had other people come on and we talk about TV shows, and, you know, like I've covered Black Lightning for a period when that was on and all of that. And so one day I was kind of thinking about like trying to like get back into it, because I've been podcasting, you know, off and on for about 10 years now. So at one of the periods where like I kind of went away from it for a while and I was trying to get back into it, I was like, instead of doing everything on one show, maybe I could kind of split things up. So I can do one-on-ones and make them their own show. The TV stuff, I can make that a thing, you know. So I went with South End Cinema. And the reason why I call it that is because I'm from the South End of Hartford. So South End Cinema sounded good to me. So I was like, that'll be where I do the TV stuff. And if I decide to, you know, go in another direction, then I'll make a show for that. But they're all on the same feed. It's just, you know, sort of different shows, different vibes, kind of like what you do with this podcast and At the Plate.
Word. And you, man, you set me up perfectly talking about South End, especially because I was curious as to what that came from, which actually leads into my next topic. Growing up in Connecticut.
Yes, sir.
Please get into that. Like, what was that like for you? What was that experience like?
It was cool. Like, you know, like I said, I grew up in the South End of Hartford, 860 area code, you know what I mean? So what I can tell you about that is at the time, I haven't been home in a while, so I don't know if the demographics are still the same as they were in the 80s and 90s when I was there. But at the time, the South End was more culturally diverse. Like there was Black people, Puerto Ricans, Greeks, Italians, Portuguese, all, you know, kind of a mixture of different people that all lived on the South End of Hartford. Then you have the North End, which was mostly Black people, Black Americans, West Indians, you know, Jamaicans, Trinidadians, people from Africa, all that. So that was mostly Black. And then there's the West End, which is kind of like nicer side. Like Hartford is the capital of Connecticut, and the governor's mansion is actually on the West End of Hartford.
Okay.
And of course, there's downtown as well. So downtown is just, you know, picture whatever downtown of, you know, American city that you want to, or whatever like that. You know, all the big buildings, parking is trash. You know what I'm saying? Courthouses, all that type of shit. So I grew up on the South End, raised by single parent. My parents actually were married for 10 years. They got married in 1975. I was born in 1980, and then they got divorced in 85. So I was 5 years old when they got divorced. And so from that point until I went to college, it was just me and my mother. You know what I mean? Both of my parents had children before me. I was the only one that they had together. So my father before me had a set of twins, a boy and a girl. And matter of fact, their birthday was actually a couple of days ago. So shout out to them. They're 7 years older than me. I'm 43, so they just turned 50. And then I have a sister on my mother's side who is 18 years older than I am.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so we got a pretty big gap between us.
Yeah.
So I was the only child that they had together. And so when, like I said, when they got divorced, it was just me and my mom. So I'm not really an only child, but I was raised like as an only child.
Gotcha.
But we had family, like my sister that I just mentioned that's on my mother's side, like her and her ex-husband and two of my nieces. I have three nieces from her side, but the youngest one wasn't born at the time. You know, they lived on the North End, so we would be over there all the time. And I used to get my hair cut on the North End as well. I went to two different barbershops on the North End. I think the first one was called Unity. That was on Albany Avenue. Anybody from Connecticut and Hartford that may hear this, y'all know Albany Ave. And then I went to Hughley's barbershop, which was a family-owned joint, the Hughley family. father, uncles, sons, aunts, all that. It was a barbershop and a beauty salon. So the whole family could go in there. You know what I'm saying? The guys can get their hair cut, the ladies can go back there and get their hair done. And, you know, it was a whole thing. So we would be, you know, back and forth or whatever. But for as far as my mother's side, I'm closer with my mom's side. And as far as that side goes, it was really just us and Barbara and her family. Then I had family on my father's side. I'm not as close with them, but you know, there's probably more of them in Connecticut than with my mother's family. Most of my mother's family was down south in North Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, both of my parents are from North Carolina.
No kidding.
They both from there. Mom's is originally from Harrodsville, which is in Hartford County. People don't necessarily know that area, but for some reason they know Ahoskie. So if you've ever heard of Ahoskie, North Carolina, that's the area that they're at. I see your face.
Yeah, because there's a skit on the Last Little Brother album
where
Peter Rosenberg was like, "This is the funeral for Percy Miracles is going to be held at so and so Performing Arts Center in Ahoskie, North Carolina." And I was like, "Is Ahoskie a real place?" And you just answered my question.
Yes, it is.
Funny how the world works.
Yeah, that's 252 right there. So if we keep track of area codes, that's the 252. It's in the northeastern part of the state. A lot of people that live up in that area work in Virginia, like Southern Virginia, like Suffolk.
Oh, okay.
All that, you know what I'm saying? Like a lot of the men used to, and they probably still do it, but I'm speaking about the past right now, but it's probably still a thing. A lot of the men that lived in that area will go up to the shipyards in the Southern Virginia area or whatever, and all of that. So that's where she's from. She's from Harrodsville, which is right outside of Ahoskie, you know, all those little towns up there. Winton, Coalfield, Murfreesboro, Jackson, all that stuff. And then my father is originally from Gates County. I believe the town is called Sunbury. He's from Gates County. And it's in the same part of the state, but not necessarily right by where my mom is from. If you know where Elizabeth City is, it's kind of in that general area.
Okay.
So they both migrated north. My mom broke out on her own at one point. She was that person. She was like, "Yo, I gotta go." So she ended up leaving and went to New York for a while and eventually ended up in Connecticut. And then my father's family moved up there. So they moved up to Connecticut when he was young. I think he said he was like 3 years old when they first moved. So he's mostly raised. He's from North Carolina, but he's mostly raised in Connecticut.
Got you.
And then came back to go to school at Elizabeth City or whatever. So,
go ahead.
But no, I was just gonna say, but just to bring it back, like, you know, everything was cool, man. Like, you know, it was cool being raised up there. Like, you know, of course I would have preferred, you know, if my parents would have been able to stay together. You know, sometimes I wonder like how things would be different if I was raised in a two-parent household instead of just one. But I think that, you know, the one did a good job of, you know, keeping me on track and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, we had a lot of good times up there. Like Hartford is about 2 hours away from New York City and about 2 hours away from Boston.
Okay, I didn't realize it was that centralized of a location.
Yeah, and it's pretty much like in the middle of the state of Connecticut as well.
Got you.
So like growing up, like, you know, I know we're gonna get into a little bit of sports talk or whatever, but like growing up, like because of where we were, I watched a lot of Celtics games and I watched a lot of Knicks games. I never became a fan of either one of those teams, but I used to see them all the time on Nesson and MSG Network.
Nesson.
And the Celtics used to play 3 home games per season at the Hartford Civic Center.
I remember that.
Yeah. And my dad used to work at the Civic Center. He worked in personnel. So he was able to get tickets for things sometimes. So I was able to actually go to some of those games. I remember one time we went to when Magic Johnson had his all-star thing that he was doing. Like it was kind of like basically pickup or whatever, but there was like going all around the Magic Johnson All-Stars, I think is what it was called. I remember going to see that one time. different like events. Like, you know, I used to watch wrestling, and one of the first things that showed me that this wrestling shit might actually be scripted was being backstage. We was going somewhere, we was walking somewhere, it's like in the backstage area, and I saw cats that on TV wouldn't be hanging around each other, but they were in the back talking, chilling. I'm
Yeah.
like, thinking, what is Mr. Fuji talking to? So I'm like, all right, this there may be something to this shit, man. So yeah, man. So Hartford has always been home. At this point in my life, I actually been in North Carolina longer than I was in Connecticut, but Connecticut is always home, and North Carolina has always been my second home. Um, so that's pretty much it. If there's anything else you want to know, then just ask or whatever. But that's pretty much kind of it in a nutshell. We had, you know, we had some family there. It was cool being around, you know, different types of people at times. There was good, bad, and ugly. You know what I'm saying? You know, I was able to grow up in a house. My mom worked her ass off, and we grew up in a house. But we weren't too far from apartments and projects and stuff like that. You know, so there were times where, you know, things were a little rough. You know, I know what it feels like to not have heat in the house for a couple of days and things like that. But, you know, we were able to maintain, and, you know, here we are today.
Word. And speaking of North Carolina, you were a graduate of North Carolina State University. So what went into your choice of going there?
So like when I was probably like a sophomore or junior in high school, I had the idea that I wanted to be an engineering major. So NC State is a really good engineering school. So that's how they kind of got on my radar at first. I think after my sophomore year, when I was a rising junior, I did two programs that summer. I did one at Manchester Community College, which was a 5-week program where you got a chance to do like um, some real early and basic kind of like electrical engineering, different type of stuff like that, like using soldering irons and circuits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
5-week program I went there for, and then I did a 1-week program. It was called SITE, which stood for Student Introduction to Engineering. I did that at NC State. So I actually came down and
Okay.
and went to that and stayed on the campus and all that. And that was like, that might have been, if it wasn't the first time, it was one of my first times actually coming to Raleigh. Like, cause like I just said, like both of my parents are from North Carolina. I'm more close with my mother's family or whatever. But, you know, before that time, I just went to where they were. So I was aware of Raleigh and Charlotte and Greensboro and all that stuff, but I had never been in none of them joints. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So, and then my sister that I mentioned earlier, my sister on my mom's side, they moved to Raleigh around 95 or 96. So that was around the same time that I was doing this. So I got a chance to check out their new house and see how they was living. And I was in this program at NC State. And it was cool. Like we got a chance to stay on the campus, stay in the dorms and everything like that. So you kind of felt like being a college student. And I met some cool people, you know, some people that actually ended up going to NC State, you know, when I went a couple years later. And originally, though, excuse me, I actually decided to go to a college called Sacred Heart University, which is in Fairfield, Connecticut.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where my mom wanted me to go because, you know, it was in state, you know, she'd be able to, you know, drive a couple hours and see me and all that. But I remember having a conversation with my father one time, and he was giving me kind of like the highlights of NC State. Like, yo, you said you want to be an engineering major. You said that you don't want to spend the rest of your life just living in Hartford and all of that. Like, this may be a chance for you to get away from here and do something different, you know. And so he just brought up a lot of really good points. But I think ultimately, even though I was 18, you know, and this is you know, one of my first major decisions, I was like, I think I need to figure this out for myself. So I took what he said into consideration, but then I basically came to the same conclusion that he did. Like, yo, yeah, this probably is a better opportunity for me. And I started realizing what he was saying, but it was me making the choice. So I was like, all right, that's what I'm gonna go with. So I ended up going to NC State. And it was a great time. Like, even though it's considered a PWI, I had a very Black experience when I was there. There were times where it felt like it was a Black school inside of a larger white university. Like, how they have different colleges within a university. It felt like one of those colleges was a HBCU at that time. And I hope that the people that are still in school there now can still have that experience if that's what they want. But I think our location is what helped make it feel that way. You know what I'm saying? We're, NC State is in Raleigh. Down the street, you got Shaw and St. Aug. Those are two Black colleges. North Carolina Central is in Durham, so that's about 30 minutes away. Then you got, A&T is in Greensboro. That's probably about an hour or so. So you got a lot of the Blackness and a lot of our culture right around you. You know what I mean? And we always had parties. We had most of the Greek letter organizations, different stuff on campus or whatever. So they did it. They made a conscious effort to have, the culture be a part of the university. So like I said, if you want that type of experience, you can have it there. And I hope that it's still the same way now for the brothers and sisters that are there now. But I chose NC State. I didn't know nothing about NC State athletics. So, that became a little a little dicey at times, me being a Carolina fan already when I went there. But, because I was originally going to add them on as like a second or third team. But when I saw how much they really hate Carolina and the sort of little brother Napoleon complex that they have comes to that, I was like, I can't rock with that. But I was unaware of that because as far as I knew, Duke was our rival. I didn't know anything about, the NC State Carolina rivalry that happened, in the early 80s and all of that. I think people that were from North Carolina, they knew about that. So they kind of knew what they were walking into. Because I know other Carolina fans that went to NC State. I know Duke fans that went there, like, you know what I'm saying? So, but as far as Carolina goes, the other Carolina fans that I know that went there that were from North Carolina, they were already aware of like how all that went. So it kind of took me by surprise when I first got there. But, I've been true blue about it, my whole life. So I couldn't change just because I went to a different school that just happened to be, in the same conference.
Yeah. So how did you become a North Carolina fan?
That's pretty easy, pretty interesting story, I think. I became a Carolina fan because of my family. Like I said, both parents being from North Carolina, being closer with my mom's side. I used to always come down for holidays and summertime and all that kind of stuff. And the people that were sports fans were Carolina fans. So, and then so also Carolina was always good. Like they've always been one of the best teams. And, nowadays it doesn't matter where you live at. You can pretty much watch any team at any time. But back then, you were pretty much just stuck to whatever your local team was and whatever was on national TV. And they being one of the top rated programs, I was able to watch them. So it allowed me to be able to keep up with them even when I wasn't around, in the state of North Carolina. So like, let's say we were going down for Thanksgiving or whatever, they may play a game or two before we ended up coming down. And I got a chance to watch them on TV. So then by the time we either took that 2-hour flight or more than likely that 12-hour drive from Connecticut down, I would be able to get with my family and be like, yo, sit with my cousin, be like, yo, did you see the game the other day? And then we just talk about the game. And then, at that time, because usually around that time they play like the Maui Invitational and back in the day, the Great Alaska Shootout.
Oh, man. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So they play like those tournaments and stuff like that. So while I was in town, Winton, North Carolina, hanging out with my family, I could watch the Carolina games with my cousins. So it became like a kind of like a bonding type of thing for us where, they were Carolina fans and I became one. At the time, UConn wasn't really popping like that either. So it was like, I like them, they cool, but they ain't really doing nothing like this other team. So I decided to go with Carolina as my main team. UConn is like my second team or whatever, but I don't really follow them or know as much about them. Like because I follow all kind of Carolina shit. You see me on Twitter. I've always be reposting shit and everything. So I'm like really locked in with that because they actually were my first team of all the teams that I either currently like or that I've liked in the past and kind of gave up because I used to be a baseball fan for a while, but I don't even really watch much baseball anymore. But I've had different teams throughout my career as a baseball fan. But North Carolina was the first team that I locked in with.
Same here.
And it was, like I said, it was because of that connection of just having love for the state of North Carolina, because this is where my people come from. And then, like I said, having just all kind of fond memories of, watching the Tar Heels play, like my cousins and, their friends was all like, they was all Carolina fans. So it was pretty easy. If they would have been Duke fans, then I would be telling you that would be my origin story for Duke or NC State or Wake Forest. But, they picked the best out of the bunch as far as I'm concerned. So I couldn't imagine it any other way. But if everything else were the same, but you just switched the team out, then that would be the story.
Word. And I was the same way in terms of UNC being the first team that I ever rooted for.
Yeah.
Because growing up in South Carolina, I mean, you only had two choices. You had South Carolina, you had Clemson. You didn't really have any other choice. And the biggest reason why I root for the teams that I root for is because nobody else was rooting for them. So this was like 1990. And I remember I was home from school. I was sick and the ACC tournament was on. Yeah. And I was flipping through the channels and then I landed on the ACC tournament. And I remember seeing the colors. I was like, man, that blue was so fire. And then I was like, bro, and they got flat tops just like me, like J.R. Reed and Rick Fox.
Yeah,
Eric Montross with that state trooper haircut. I was like, this is the team I'm going to latch on to. And it's been on ever since.
I started I didn't mean to cut you off, but I was just going to say that. You said 1990. I probably started a couple years before that. 88 was around the time. Actually, Hubert Davis, who was our current head coach, I think that was his first year, his freshman year.
Okay. Yeah. Was that when King Rice was there?
King Rice, yeah. King Rice, Derek Phelps. I want to say Brian Reese, George Lynch.
Yep.
Montross was there. Kevin Salvadori. Dante Calabria was in there somewhere in there too.
Yeah, Donald Williams.
Yep. Shaman Williams. Probably not on that same team, but yeah.
So what were some of your, obviously, I was going to say, what were some of your favorite Tar Heel moments?
Okay. So I put some thought into this one.
Okay.
I'm going to name some and I can explain the reason for them. So right off the top, the championships that I've seen them win. So I was alive in 82, but I was 2 years old. So I don't count 82. So I'm not going to mention that one in this. So 93, 2005, 2009, and 2017. So I'm going to break down each one of those for you. So 93, that was my first championship. Like I said, I just started rooting for them probably in 88. So I'm a few years into the game, living this Carolina lifestyle, and they get a chance to play against the Fab Five in the championship game. Now, I'll give you a fun fact, too. I saw the Fab Five play at the McDonald's All-American game a couple years before that. At that time, the McDonald's game used to go around to different cities around the country. And this is probably like, 91 or 92?
Okay.
When they were all seniors. And the McDonald's game was in Springfield. And me and my sister's ex-husband and another friend and his son, we all drove up to Springfield to go see the McDonald's All-American game.
Now, how far is that from Hartford?
It's at least a couple hours. Because remember, I told you that Hartford is a couple hours from Boston, so somewhere in that range.
Okay.
2-ish hours, something around there. So not too bad of a road trip or whatever. So we went up to the game, and we like none of us knew about the Fab Five, but we found out about them that day. So we got programs, and we're looking at who's going where, and we see, damn, Chris Webber, he's going to Michigan, and he's nice. Oh shit, Jawan Howard, he's going there too. So we eventually find out like, oh shit, all 5 of these dudes are going to Michigan. Travis Best was also in that game, and Glenn Big Dog Robinson was also in that one as well. So I had a chance to see all those cats play. Yeah. So 93, the Fab Five, now they're cultural icons. They're nice as a basketball team. All the young ballers like myself at the time was playing high school basketball. We all want to rock it like the Fab Five, like with the black socks and the baggy shorts and the whole nine, right?
Yeah.
So the year before that, they played Duke, and they lost to Duke. So then we played them in 93. I'm like, okay, we got to beat these niggas. Like, they lost to Duke or whatever. We can't let them get this one. So it was dope to see us play against the Fab Five. And I had that memory of watching them a couple of years ago when they were all in high school, but I was like, we got to win this one. So we won that one, and that was special. So that one's special to me because it was the first one. 2005, we had gone through the whole, Coach Smith retiring, Coach Guthrie's holding it down for a couple of years. Then Matt Doherty, he was a disaster.
That never happened.
Yeah, but he did bring in guys that were on that 05 championship team.
True.
So it was good to see them finally become what they could fully become. Like, he brought them in there, but he wasn't able to tap into their potential the way that Roy was able to. Yeah. Also, that was the year that Illinois was undefeated for most of that season. Mm-hmm. And everybody was on Illinois' dick. Everybody was like, Illinois, like the way the media was talking about it, at least from my point of view, it was like they thought Illinois had already won the championship. Like, there's no need to play the rest of the season. These guys got it. I'm like, nah, like, Carolina's like, we got a squad on over there. Like, I see what they're doing. You can't take that away, but I felt kind of disrespected because a lot of people will be like, Illinois is the best team. Carolina's probably the most talented team, but Illinois is the best team, and they're going to win it. So I was like, yo, I don't want to play these niggas, man. I was like, we got to play Illinois if we make it that far. That's who we played against. So I was glad to see us beat Illinois because I wanted them the whole season. So we got to the finals. We played them. We beat them. And the final score is probably about a 5 or 7 point margin.
75-70. If memory serves me correct.
But the game itself wasn't really that close. Like, we had a double-digit lead for most of that game. They made a little bit of a push towards the end, but, it was pretty much over at that point. So I was glad about that one. So we got Illinois. 2009, the reason why that's so special is because 2008, we got our ass kicked in the Final Four. Luckily, I didn't see that because one of my cousins, who was also a Carolina fan, he was moving that day, and I helped him move. And we were done with everything by the time the game started. But you know how it is when people are moving. Like, you really just want to get everything in the house. You worry about getting stuff set up later on. So we were tired. We thought about maybe going somewhere to watch the game, but we decided to just order some pizza and just kind of chill out and all that. But my phone kept going off. I kept getting all kind of text messages and calls, people talking shit. Yo, what's up with your boys? Blah, blah, blah. Because Kansas was whooping our ass that night.
Yeah.
So, and then of course, once that was over, then Roy had the Kansas pin when he watched them play, I think, in the championship game. So people were talking crazy about that. So it was good to see 2009 because that was pretty much the same team as we had in 2008. And those guys said, yo, we're going to come back and we're going to run it back. And they learn from their lessons. They learn from their mistakes, rather. You know what I'm saying? And they went ahead and got it done. So that's why 2009 is special. I want to go back to 2005 real quick because I forgot to say this.
Okay.
It's really the main thing about 2005. The first time I saw that team play, I knew they was going to win the championship. And I never had that feeling before that or after that. But, Roy liked to always give like his players what would be considered a home game. if he had guys that were like juniors or seniors or whatever. So that year we played Santa Clara on the way out to Maui to go to the Maui Invitational.
Yep.
And we had Quentin Thomas on the team, who he's a rapper now, goes by GQ. He's on Jamla. And that was his home game. And I remember that for whatever reason, Raymond Felton didn't play that game. It wasn't on TV, but they said that we had to play this game. Ray Felton wasn't going to play. He had like some kind of injury. So they lost to Santa Clara. And then they got out to Maui with this loss. And the first game that I saw, I was like, we're going to win it all, because I saw how fast we were playing. The fact that Roy had Sean May running the floor, and just that whole fast-paced speed that we were rocking with. And I was like, I hadn't even seen anybody else yet, but I was like, if we play like this all year, there's nobody that's gonna stop us. And I really, like, nowadays, if I had that feeling, I would tweet it, I would put it on Facebook, I would get on TikTok, I would do something to document it. So I'd be like, okay, remember this. I'm saying it now. We're gonna win this shit. Nobody's fucking with us. But at that time, we didn't have all of that. So, but I really did say out loud in my living room at the time, if we play like this all year, we're gonna win the championship. And we did. And then the last one, 2017, just like with the 09 joint, we had heartbreak in 2016.
Chris Jenkins
ripped the hearts out of our chest.
That one stung.
That shit hurt so bad, bro. Like, I fell back into my chair because Marcus Page hit that three before that to tie the game. So I'm like, yeah, Marcus, like, I was all excited. I stood up, like, hell yeah, you know what I'm saying? He tied the game. We just got to get one stop. We'll go to overtime, and then we'll see what happens. This man came down on the next possession, hit that three. I was standing up. I fell back into the chair, and I just sat there for like 5 minutes, staring at the ceiling, like, what the fuck?
I remember that.
That hurt so bad. So just like with the 09 joint, they came back with the idea of, let's run it back. We can't go out like that. And that team came back in 2017. 2017, and they got the job done. So those are some of my favorite Carolina moments. Other ones, I won't go into as much detail about some of the other ones, but obviously beating Coach K in his last home game and in his career in the Final Four, definitely one of my favorite Carolina moments. And a couple more, just to give you a couple more. Before it even came to basketball, the first time that I actually went to a party at Carolina, like just being on the campus, you know what I'm saying? Like, me being a fan of them for so long, the first time that I actually stepped on their campus, I was like, holy shit, I'm here. Like, just looking around and seeing all the Carolina, like seeing the banners on the buildings and the street signs of Carolina Blue. Like, yo, oh shit, I'm here. And then, we went to a party and I danced on with a lot of the ladies. And so it was a great time. But then the last one that I'll say is that, the first time that I went to a game was also one of my biggest ones. I remember, like, in 2011, they did an 11-11-11 sale, which was on November 11th of 2011. They put tickets for about 5 or 6 different games on sale for $11.
Really?
Yeah, and they did the same thing in 2012, 12-12-12. So on December 12th of that year, same thing. Like, some tickets were on sale for about $12. So I got tickets on the 11-11 joint, and I got 2 tickets. I was like, I'm gonna just buy 2 of them because they're only like $22, and I'll figure out who's gonna come with me later on. So eventually one of my cousins ended up going with me. And even though we were in the nosebleeds, it was just great to be in there. Like, I don't know if you've been to a game there, but when you walk in and you see the court and you see all the Carolina Blue, and you look up and you see all those banners, championship banners, retired numbers, the whole nine.
Yeah.
It was like, yo, it was like, you know what I'm saying? Like, just
you were in the cathedral.
Yeah, I'm in the cathedral. You know what I'm saying? And then I got tickets. I don't know if I did it the next year or the year after, but sometime within the next couple years after that, I went to a game and I remember they were doing something to honor Coach Smith, and he was there.
Wow.
Like Bob would say, I was about to cry. I didn't cry, but it was like one of those about to cry type moments, like, oh shit. Like, and again, I was pretty high up. I don't think my seats were as bad as they were for the first game, but not really like super close. But it was just like, oh shit, that's Coach Smith. Like,
Yeah.
this building is named after him.
Right.
Like, think about how ill that is. Like, people don't get buildings named after them while they're alive too often.
That's true. That's very true.
Yeah. And, and for him to be retired at that time, and, his health wasn't really so good and everything like that. He ended up passing away in 2015, I believe. So it was just dope that he was there. I was like, yo, I'm in the same building and he's right there. I had to look at the jumbotron to really see him in great detail, but I'm like, he's right there. So those are some of my favorite Carolina moments.
Man, that's awesome. You know what? I didn't have this in the show notes, but I'm gonna get into it anyway because you're also a big Lakers fan.
Yeah.
So how did that come about? I'm fairly certain I know, but talk about that.
We'll see if my answer is what you were thinking. James Worthy.
Yep.
Yep.
Gastonia.
Yeah, James Worthy. I didn't see him at Carolina. I was too young to watch him there, just like I was too young to watch MJ when he was there. But James Worthy being a Tar Heel. And again, that goes to the family thing, because I have older cousins and older and uncles and people like that were fans, the people that influenced me to become a Carolina fan. They saw him play there. So they had that connection of, James Worthy. And then I was a big Magic Johnson fan at the time too. So Showtime Lakers, Magic Johnson, James Worthy, he went to Carolina. I didn't see him, but I know he's a Tar Heel too. So I started rocking with them because of that. You know what I'm saying? And then also like some of my folks are also Lakers fans too. So, same influence.
Got you.
Yeah.
So now we're going to get into the 5-question segment. So first and last question are the same question I ask every guest on here. And questions 2 through 4 are 100% random. So question number 1, what were the go-to items for Leonard with his school lunch tray?
Oh man. Back in the day, definitely I was a fan of the bagel pizza. Chocolate milk was a big one. Those are two of the ones the two main ones that come up. They had the regular pieces too, but I remember they did the bagel pizza. That was pretty cool. So those are the ones that I'll go with. Those are the ones that come to mind right now.
Word. Question number 2, who was your first celebrity crush?
Ooh. First celebrity crush. Man, it might be Janet Jackson, man.
Hey, can't go wrong.
Yeah. She's one of, oh, you know what? It's Janet Jackson and Nia Long.
Word.
Nia Long. Boy. They're on my I've seen somebody on Twitter had a thread, like who was your Mount Rushmore of like celebrity crushes or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely two of them. So yeah, Nia Long, Janet Jackson.
Yeah, boy, Nia Long. She had that shortcut on Fresh Prince and Friday.
Come on, man.
Undefeated.
Yes, sir. Undefeated.
Top tier.
Still undefeated.
Yes.
Like, I don't know how old she is. Doesn't matter. That black has not cracked at all. That woman is
not in the slightest.
She is still one of the finest women I've ever seen in my damn life. So yeah, those two for sure. I used to have the Janet Jackson poster, the one where she was topless and the person was behind her holding her breasts.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to have that poster. I wish I still had that shit, man. I used to have that joint in my room. I used to touch the poster every time I left the room. You know how like people go on the Apollo and they'll rub the log or whatever?
Yeah.
I touch the Janet poster every time I left the room.
Oh, that's funny.
That was my girl. Man.
Question number 3. What was
Yeah.
the first concert that you attended without adult supervision?
Oh shit. I don't even know. That's a good one though. I have no idea what the first one without adult supervision was. Um,
Or
I don't know.
how about the one with us, the first concert that with adult supervision?
One of the best ones, probably the first ones that I went to with adult supervision, MC Hammer.
Yep, I've seen him too.
MC Hammer, that motherfucker puts on a show. Um, I remember that, and I remember they brought him through the crowd, and I was like this close to touching him, but he was on somebody's shoulders, so they would knock it. Anybody whose hand got too close, they knocked your hand away. Which
Okay.
at the time, me being a kid, I'm like, damn, why they? But it made sense because you don't want somebody to actually like tip him over or something like that.
Right.
But he walked right past us, and so that was definitely one of the first ones, one of the best ones, man. MC Hammer.
Yeah, for sure. I remember seeing him when I was a kid too, man, and same reaction. I mean, just nonsense. I don't know how that dude doesn't get tired. It's ridiculous. I mean, even now when you see his
Even
videos
now,
on Twitter.
yeah, yeah, he's a beast, man. He's definitely one of my all-time favorites. Like there was a time where like, you know, people were embarrassed to be saying that they were him, feel like, oh, he's whack, he's this, that. But keep it real, that motherfucker was. I mean, he might not be in one of your top whatever MCs. I'm not really a list person, but he's not in my top whatever of MCs necessarily. But as far as entertainers,
Unparalleled.
yeah, unparalleled.
Which actually is a good segue into my next question. Question number 4. What was the last thing that made you say, I'm not 18 anymore?
Oh shit, there's there's plenty of those, man. The fact that you can sleep wrong and have your back be cooked, or you know, and this doesn't necessarily have to be a because of not being 18. But I was at work the other day, and I was in a pretty tight space for an extended period of time, and by the time that day was over, everything hurt. Like this is a really small room. And it was just like, yeah, this is not what somebody my age needs to be doing. I'll give you one for sure though. Like when I fucked my knee up a few years ago, that was a not 18 moment, even though like I slipped down the stairs and that could happen at any point in your life. But the thing about that said that I wasn't 18 was the fact that I was 37 at the time, but like going through the whole process of rehab, that kind of kicked my ass at times.
Yeah.
And I knew that like the healing process was probably slowed down a little bit because of my age. If that would have happened to me at 18, it would have still been tough, but you snap back quicker.
Yeah.
So that's one of the things that I would say, like the fact that like when you do get injured, if you have a little too much to drink or something like that, sometimes the bounce back ain't as quick as it used to be. So
it sure ain't.
and then also, I mean, you can look at me like you see all this fucking gray hair. Like when my hair grows out to like about this length, like you see all this gray. That says that my ass ain't 18 anymore either.
Hey, great gang, man. Let's go. But what was that rehab process like? I was curious.
Man, it was tough. Like so like I told my patella tendon, and the doctor that did my surgery was the same guy that did Victor Cruz's surgery when Victor Cruz was with the Giants. He used to work for the Giants. Yeah, he was team doctor for the Giants at that time. So I tore it. He told me that like the patella tendon is the front of your knee. It goes from like basically your thigh bone over your kneecap. It holds your patella in place. And it anchors on the shin bone. So it goes right across the front of your knee.
Okay.
And it's one of the things that allow you to like straighten your leg out and all that kind of stuff. So I tore mine. He said usually when people tear theirs, they tear it completely off of one end or the other. So surgery is serious. Acting up. This is like the fire starter. Ain't nobody.
Okay. I found this on the web for surgery is
serious. You gotta chill out. Sorry about that.
I love it.
Shout out to Tone and Kenny and Bob with that one. But so mine tore in half. So he was like, that's not the most common way. It's probably the least common way to tear it. But so they had to go in there and sew it back together. I think they got some tissue from a hamstring or something like that and put it all together. He told me that it's probably the most frustrating injury to recover from. And I could definitely say that for sure, because part of the process was I had to have my leg in a brace locked straight for like 8 weeks.
Oh, geez.
And I wasn't supposed to take the brace off unless I was at physical therapy or doing my exercises at home or something like that. So just imagine your leg being locked in one position for that long. The brace was heavy, but I couldn't stand up or walk without it. So I had not even a love-hate, really a hate-hate relationship with it, because I hated that shit, but I needed it though.
Yeah.
And eventually I kind of stopped. Like I kept it on or whatever, but like I would unhook it for a while because it just became so heavy. My leg was so weak. So that was really hard. I would say definitely like the mental side of it too. That was something that I don't think I really understood. I don't think you can understand it unless you go through something like that. The mental side of it was really tough, because you think about like you're able to walk around and pretty much come and go as you want to and all that. Then you have a major injury like that. Your leg is in a brace. You can't get up and just go. I can't drive. I can't do this. I can't do that. So that really starts fucking with you.
Yeah.
And I will tell you this though. YouTube is a great way to kind of research things. One of the things that I did when I was going through that was I looked online to see videos of people. At the time, my original search was just looking for people that were at whatever stage I was in. Like, let's say, 2 weeks after surgery from a torn patella tendon. I wanted to see like some of like the exercises that they were doing and like some of just their process. I did find that, but I also found people who were going through just normal everyday shit. Like I remember at one point I came across a video and this guy I was about 3 or 4 weeks after surgery, and this guy was at the same point, and he was talking about like he can't sleep in his bed right now. It's not comfortable to sleep in the bed because of the brace and the whole thing. I was like, yo, me too. Like it was, in some ways, it was kind of like, even though I never interacted with any of these people, some of the videos were actually kind of old at that point. They had been posted years before, 2017. But I think it's one of those things where like when you're going through something, sometimes you need somebody to talk to or to vent to or whatever, or just to know that someone else is experiencing the same thing that you are experiencing.
Yeah.
And like I said, I didn't talk to any of these people or whatever, but it helped me a lot to see that somebody else was actually going through. So like when I was unable to really get a comfortable night's sleep in my bed, and it felt more comfortable to sleep on the couch, seeing a video of somebody who had the same experience made me feel like, okay, even though in my mind, I know that other people have gone through the same thing before, but you kind of feel alone at times, you know what I'm saying? So like I said, that mental side of it really was fucking with me more so than the physical in a lot of ways. But the physical side was hard because, like I said, brace for 8 weeks, locked straight, basically starting at zero in terms of strength and mobility and all that kind of stuff. So I had to build it back up, and I would definitely say this to anybody if you ever go through any type of injury, but in particular a leg injury, but anything where you need physical therapy, make sure you do the work at home. Like, don't just do the stuff when you go to PT. Work on that shit at the house too, because if you don't, you'll eventually heal, but you won't heal properly. So just staying disciplined enough to do my exercises. And, sometimes like you would have moments where like, okay, I can do something today that I couldn't do a week ago. And you feel good about that, right? But then there may be a time when you hit that plateau where I'm continuing to do the work, but I'm not feeling any, the results don't seem to be moving like they've been moving. Now I'm kind of just leveling out. So fighting through that and everything like that was also a part of it. So it was tough, man. It was definitely one of those things that happen to you in life sometimes where it shows you that you have a level of strength and resilience to stuff that you didn't know that was there.
Yeah.
And it wasn't life or death type of situation. I wasn't, possibly on my deathbed, but I mean, we all have a struggle. We all have something that we got to push through. So that was something that I had to push through.
There you go. Very well said. And last question. What was the last thing that really made you laugh?
All right. So this didn't just happen, but I just thought of it the other day. And it was a tweet that I saw some months ago where this person said Tupac had to move out of Baltimore because of the way that they kept pronouncing his name. And you laughing because you can hear it in your own mind. Anybody that hears this podcast or watches this joint, think of the Black Baltimore accent, that Q. Imagine that nigga being in Baltimore and people be like, "What's up, Tupac? How you doing, Q?" No. And no disrespect to my Baltimore people, but y'all know y'all sound crazy, man. So when when I just said that and you had that moment of thinking about what that would sound like, when I first read that shit and when I thought about it the other day, I busted out laughing and that was the best part about it. Like they didn't spell it out, or it wasn't like a like a voice tweet or whatever where they said it. It left it all to your imagination.
Yeah.
Heard that accent. You know what that shit sounds like. Yeah.
Oh man, that was a good one.
That joint
had goodness. So if there's anything you want to plug and promote, the floor is yours.
Man, so yeah, check me out on Twitter at L Brothers Media, at Look Listen Pod, at South End Cinema, on Instagram. What is it? It's L Brothers Media, South End Cinema, and LBM Food. That's pretty self-explanatory. It's pictures of food, mostly stuff that I've cooked over the last few years, since the pandemic. Like when we were at home, stuck at the house, I decided to learn how to step my cooking game up. So like I could do some basic stuff before that, but I decided that I wanted to learn how to do a lot more in the kitchen, especially my mom lives with me or whatever. So I wanted to make it so that now that we're both going to be stuck in here for a while, she don't have to do all the cooking. So I was like, let me level up. So you kind of see the process of, how I've gotten better over the last few years. So that's on LBM Food. And got to do a little bit of editing and get it out there. But I just had Danny on my show. So check that out. That'll be coming to y'all real soon. That's about it, man.
Word, man. This was a long time coming, but we made it happen.
Yes, sir.
And thank you for being on, man. And thank y'all for listening. Make sure y'all like, download, and subscribe to Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. Make sure you like, download, and subscribe South End Cinema and the Look and Listen podcast as well. Tell a friend.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. Those are on the same feed. South End Cinema, Look and Listen podcast. They're both on the same feed. So yeah.
Got you. Tell a friend to tell a friend. And subscribe to my YouTube channel too. It's at Danny Foxworth 843, where you can find the video versions of my podcast. And for Leonard and myself, this has been another episode of Since We Last Spoke with Danny Foxworth. And until next time, y'all be good. Peace.
Peace.